Good evening, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Let's take a look and see what is going on with Bitcoin. So, for Monday's close, definitely got a nice bearish close. Like I mentioned to you guys earlier, we dove into a little bit of liquidity up to 65.7-ish area. Weren't able to really hold that, and then it just tanked, right? And that was a really good short here for anybody that took advantage of that. Congratulations, I'm happy for you. Um, let's take a look and see kind of what to expect here. So as far as, where we are in the week and, what I'm expecting for this week, and I did mention this in the Sin City crypto group, but I am still extremely, extremely bullish for this week. Surprisingly, I know it doesn't look like I should be bullish, but I trade against the crowd for the most part. So, um, yes, I will say that this can have a continuation down. We could even potentially, my next area that I'm going to be targeting, if we can't hold 63.6, is going to be this 62.414 area, which is going to be that order block right there. But essentially, you'd have to basically be pulling from this fib, I would say, and that takes you to about the midway point of this order block right here. So definitely could get down into the 62.5-ish range if it wanted to. Obviously, worst case scenario, you still can target this order block here, the 60,800. Here's the thing, guys. Tomorrow is going to be very interesting. So obviously today is bearish, right? If tomorrow is bearish as well, even if we get a drop into here, Wednesday's probably going to flip things around. The FOMC meeting is probably going to flip things back to the upside. The reason why I say this is that, I always preach this, right? When we're dealing with a bullish week, what do you want to see happen? Price is fractal. So, what exactly does that mean? Well, when I say price is fractal, it means that it's kind of that same concept as above, so below. Basically, on the larger time frames, those same patterns occur on the meso and the micro time frames just at a quicker scale. So you could say the same thing going from the micro time frames upward, right? When you have a head and shoulders or a cup and handle, that all is going to play out a lot faster on the 1 minute, obviously, than versus like the 4 hour or the daily, right? But price, the patterns repeat, and that's why JP's style from, or Zen Master JP from Sin City Crypto. You got the Crypto Lifer, Sam Price. His style works really well. So that is wise because patterns are fractal and they occur in the same way, in the same fashion across all of the different time frames, no matter what you're looking at. It's just on a different scale, right? It's a different price scale that they occur at, but they're the exact same patterns. So right here, if you guys take a look, this right here does tell me that we do have a potential to keep going lower, especially when it comes to a timing basis, right? We're not really at a time where I'm looking for a reversal. Yes, we just opened up Asia session, but I'm not really looking or hoping that we get a reversal at this point because Asia session is not really one of my times to, look for a setup, let's just say, right? Can we? We can absolutely have a reversal during Asia session. I just don't enjoy it. And on the same token, if we were going to have a reversal come Asia session, I would want it to happen tomorrow evening or ideally the following evening after the FOMC meeting, if it had to wait that long. But tonight, still, I would like to see this still kind of dump, really make our tail for the week, or we could just kind of pause right here. It's really going to depend, but if we take a look at the weekly, you can see we're kind of bouncing off that 200 MA. So this, in theory, should be really good, a really good support area. It does not mean though that we can wick, we can't wick below it, right? We can definitely wick below the 200 MA. We just don't want to see it close below it. But again, guys, like I said, I know some of you are extremely bearish, but look at we have 6 days left on this candle. So a whole lot can happen in 6 days, and we're dumping to begin with. And whenever we dump, or we drop for a candle, we assume that we're getting an open low high close pattern, meaning a bullish candle rather than an open high low close, right? Open high low close is a bearish candle because you're going open, you're trading up, then you're going to trade down, and you're going to close somewhere down below. But open low high close is going to be your bullish candle where you go open, you trade below the open, you then trade above the open, and then you close somewhere in between, right? All right, so that being said, that's kind of what I'm looking at for right now. Definitely still could be some bearishness, continuing through tomorrow. No problem with that. But overall, like I said, I'm still bullish for the week from a timing perspective. Taking a look at the 12 hour, you got a nice head and shoulders. Obviously, all of retail is going to measure this down all the way down to here. Will we get down to here? I don't know. We could even take out this double bottom right here. Who knows? But there also is a chance that we could reverse right on the support line that we reached at 63.6. So just keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind too is that you are getting farther away from the moving averages. This was a very huge candle. Got a couple big bearish candles in a row, so just be aware that we are moving away from the moving averages on the meso and some of the higher micro time frames. Taking a look at the 4 hour, I mean, as long as you keep 63,000, you're going to be remaining bullish. Nothing really worrisome there, in my opinion. You could even wick all the way down here, come back up as long as you're closing above the 4 hour 200 MA at 63,000. Same goes for the 6. You're kind of almost bouncing off of the 6. Um, Practically, I would say, it's at 63.2. You reach down to about 63,456, so about $200 off. But we could potentially get a bounce here, so just kind of keep that in mind, okay? All right, let's take a look at the hour. So let's see, the 1 hour, you got that death cross there with all your moving averages below. You're about to get that death cross on the 2 hour. Possibly. You got the official one coming up here with the 50. So there's a decent chance you'll get that official death cross on the 4 hour, or sorry, the 2 hour. So definitely kind of alludes to maybe some more potential to the downside. We have to take a look at liquidity and see. But there's no real Fed events or anything to bring us back to flip price. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not we're going to bounce off of this support right here. Which I'm now thinking we're wicking quite a few times below it. It could definitely curve up based off of volume, but I just don't like how many times we're touching it. 15-minute, you've cleanly lost the 200. You got that 21, the 50 crossing over. You're about to get the 80 and the 100 crossing over. So definitely bearish sign there. All of the smaller time frames, guys, do show bearishness, but it's extended bearishness, right? This is extended bearishness to the downside. So eventually, at one point, you get so bearish that you become bullish, right? 5 minute kind of have that descending triangle type of vibe. Again, guys, at the very least, I'm going to be targeting 65,252 and 65,373 to be retested this week. So, not too much to worry about there. I will be watching for these levels to get retested. These are critical levels. So, again, very good sign that we are dumping at the beginning of the week, though, I got to say. It does make me very excited. That being said, guys, let's go ahead and take a real quick look at liquidity. As far as levels go, you lose 63.6. My next target, honestly, is going to be down at around 62.5-ish area, somewhere in here. Possibly 62.6 if you can get the bounce off at the top of the order block. But, ultimately, you want to see us, get some sort of reaction off of this order block right here, whether it be in the middle, the bottom, or the top of it. So 62.4 to 62.6 around there would be my kind of area that I'm watching if we were to make that continuation downward still. That being said, that's what I have for the downside, and then to the upside, obviously, you're gonna have to get above these 200 MAs again. So probably, 64.7. You probably would have to take a 786 from here, I would say. That wipes out this double top. So about 65,215 would be a good target, which is right around weekly open, or midnight weekly open. So definitely going to target 65.2-ish area, if we do get the bounce. But that's kind of what I'm seeing for Bitcoin for right now. Let's take a look at liquidity, see what's going on there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and zoom into my 4 hour here. Let's see what's going on. So the 4 hour, we started diving into this liquidity pool here. I can even aggregate this more. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. Yeah, it's just going to make it a little bit more messy for me, so I'd rather not. Um, you know, honestly, guys, I mean, it does really show we could at least get down to about 62.4. It kind of is at bottom of that order block right here before we possibly see some sort of reaction. That would be taking out this bottom, I believe, right here too. This would be a nice double bottom on the higher micro time frames. Um, but definitely shows we could maybe take this out and then have a bounce from there potentially. Um, let's take a look at the hourly. So the hourly, you dipped into a decent amount of liquidity right there, and you got it thick on both sides. This is, I believe, 100x and 50x checked off. You got a lot more liquidity in the market right now. So, um, it really is going to depend on where this thing wants to go. We could potentially just kind of tap the top of this liquidity here and get a bounce. We could take the rest of this out, tap the top of this, get a bounce up. Yeah, this kind of alludes to that same fact. So 100x and 50x kind of tell me we could maybe do that. Let me see if I aggregate this a little bit more with the 25, what happens. Yeah, so that's some green liquidity. I mean, it does tell us we could get a bounce off of 62.4 to 62.6. That's what I would be targeting. And then if that falls through, obviously you target this area. But because I'm expecting a midweek reversal, I'm not, unless we violently come down here quickly. I'm more so expecting that 62.6, 62.4. That's more, I would say, more reasonable. It's a little bit more realistic than trying to reach to down here for right now. Not to say that we can't do this. We could definitely come down here, but it just seems like it would be a more realistic move to reach around here. Let's see. Let's take a look at the 15-minute. And you guys can see too, there's a lot building up here, that we could start taking out up to, even 68K that I was targeting the other day. So just kind of keep that in mind. We could definitely get the reversal at any time. We can get, a bounce off of 62.5, 62.6. That's kind of the area I'm going to be targeting is about 62.5, 62.6 if we don't get the bounce right now. Okay. Let's see. So 15-minute kind of showing the same thing, nothing really different there. If I take off the 25x, you can see we got some yellow liquidity. Zoom in a little bit more. Got some red there at 62,460-ish. So that'd be my first target to the downside if we were to continue down, like I said. If we were to take a look at our order book through open market, or it looks like it reverted. Did it revert back to Kiyotaka? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. There's open market. There's Kiyotaka. I don't know what they're doing with the naming conventions, but you can see, there's a lot more orders right next to us to the downside, kind of leading us down into that 62, 124 even range. You got some 62.8, but this looks more like support around 61.5. So that could be an area of support there. And then to the upside, this almost looks like an area of resistance, right? 66,000, 6365. So definitely we could start seeing the move up. I don't see a lot of liquidity to the upside just yet. As I check off the 100, but the 100 only shows it up to about 64K, and then you could maybe get that continuation to the downside, unless it really wants to just start eating up liquidity to the upside. But again, from a timing perspective, I would have liked to more so see this reversal happen in the morning, like tomorrow morning, would have been a better shot than right now. But again, the market's going to do what it's going to do at different times, right? So I get it. But it just tells me that there's less likely of a follow through rather than this happening New York Open, right? So definitely could happen. Definitely could get the reversal. It's just we don't have quite the liquidity that I would want to see for right now. But anything is possible. You got to be open minded. So for right now, if we were to get a move to the upside, I would say 64K. You could even get up to 64.3 ish if it wanted to. Tap that 21 before it continued down lower. That's kind of what I'm seeing for right now. 63.6 seems to be a fairly strong support point, but the more that we linger here, the bigger chance we're just going to get a rollover, right? So that's what I'm seeing as far as liquidity and our order book goes. Let's take a final look at our simple map here. So taking a look at our simple map, this kind of tells me a lot more information. I do like to use this quite a bit. So yeah, guys, I mean, you're right next to this bigger area of liquidity right here to the downside, 63.4. I would say if you're able to clear 63.4, you could possibly make it all the way up to 63,000 even. You know, like I said, there could be a potential we get a bounce here. If you got a bounce, it'd be around 64,080. It looks like that you could get up to before you start having some problems getting further to the upside than 64.5. Um, Definitely a possibility that we could get up here, but you know, we're right next to this bigger liquidity to the downside. It's just there's not really too many bridges to get us there, right? So keep that in mind, guys. You know, it is still very low volume for right now. You know, we're not going to see a spike in volume until we get to that Fed event on Wednesday. So be very careful with how you're trading this market. Let's take a look at our swing time frames as well. Swing time frames, you know, you're looking at about the same thing, right? Like what I was saying, you know, you got to clear 63,420 to the downside, then you could maybe make it up to 63,030, you know, and then test that. That could be a good area of support. And if not, you kind of fall through to about 62.4, which is basically the bottom of that order block, right? So definitely could see that move to the downside, but it's really going to depend on if it wants to come back up or not. And then obviously to the upside, you got 64,080 that you're going to have to get above. And then from there, you know, you're talking 64,470, 64,590. Anywhere where there's this bigger bar, you know, that is kind of treated like an area of resistance to the upside. To the downside, a bigger bar is treated as an area of support, right? So definitely see, you know, we're in a tighter range for right now, and it's going to be interesting to see where price wants to take us. All right, guys, that being said, that's what I have for you for this evening. If you guys, as usual, if you guys ever wanted to utilize Trading Different and its tools, you want to get a decent 10% off discount of it, feel free to use my code Sean, tradingdifferent.com/code/Sean to get a 10% off discount of these amazing tools that help you identify a trend and show you where liquidity is at. That being said, guys, I'm going to leave it there for today. I will talk to you all in the morning. Take care.